So the first question I have seen here, first question came from Ma'am Merly Palakpak. This is about illegal seeds. There is one slide saying that illegal seeds don't implement stewardship. So what are question by Ma'am Merly is, what measures are put in place to prevent the negative impact of these illegal seeds to the industry? Dr. Tony, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Ma'am Merly, for the question. So these are variously called illegal seed, fake, counterfeit, unregistered seeds, all referring to the same thing. And this is everybody's concern, all the stakeholders, not only the industry, but also the government regulators, the farmers, the traders, because all these kinds of seeds affect the industry, and it can be addressed in so many fronts. But basically, the most important action should come from the government, because being regulatory in nature, having these regulatory offices from the government, they are the ones who can implement the law, who can implement the policies and guidelines of the government. The industry can only do so much, maybe coordinate with the government when it comes to reporting when, how, and where this is happening. But in terms of actual actions to go after the perpetrators of these practices, it has to come from the government. And regarding specific actions, so CropLife Philippines has put together a collection of evidence from Facebook, for example, those selling apparently unregistered GM corn, claiming to be ACB resistant or herbicide tolerant, but don't have the proper permits and documents. We can submit them to the government, DA, BPI, or the Fertilizer and Pesticide Authority, for them to understand better the extent of the problem. I mentioned about the JAW, or the Joint Admin Order, that is now being developed by the industry. It's now at an advanced stage because public consultations have just been completed. And this is being led by DTI, DOH, DNR, and DA. After the public consultations, I think this will now be published in newspaper, and it will take effect, providing policies and regulations for online selling. Those are the things that I can tell you that being done to address the illegal seeds that are now proliferating in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tony, and thank you, Ma'am Merl. The question is for the IRRI team. The IRRI continues to research on the genetic development of rice to alleviate hunger. So can you cite some examples on the ongoing researches on rice, and how does rice contribute to the nation's sustainable development goal? Thank you.
Okay, so basically we're having an ongoing research on developing high iron zinc rice. So that's one of the one part of the healthier rice program, where we're trying to address the iron deficiency anemia. So probably to have one of our staple food to be more nutritious. So we are also planning to stack the high iron rice with golden rice. So you have both the provitamin A enriched rice and also the high iron zinc together. So basically, we're trying just to partly contribute in the goal of providing healthier rice, healthier food for the Philippine population.
Okay, thank you, Sir Norman. The next question is from Sir Muhammad Kamrul Hassan. Doc Tony, this is for Doc Tony. You mentioned also that refuge compliance is one of the post-approval requirements for corn. So can you state what is can you please say about refuge? So what is the role of refuge in GM corn?
Yeah, so the refuge seeds are basically the non-BT counterpart of the variety or of the product that is planted. It can be 5%, it can be 10% or 20%. It can be blended along with the main product. But the idea is to provide plants within the field that are susceptible to the target insect so that these insects can continue to feed and live within the field and produce their progenies. So they increase in number, these susceptible plants, because only susceptible plants will be able to survive in these non-BT plants. And the idea is so that there will be sufficient number or population of susceptible target insects so that if ever it happens that a resistant individual evolves within the BT plant, there is a big likelihood that that resistant insect will mate with the susceptible. So the progeny will be a heterozygous, and heterozygous insects can be easily killed by the BT trait. So by having that kind of system, the evolution of a resistant individuals that will continue to proliferate, to the next generation is prevented. So it's one way of prolonging the technology and prevent the emergence and continue these resistant individuals into the next generation. That's the simplest answer to the reason why we are providing these refuge plants or susceptible plants within the BT field.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Tony, thank you. So the next question is for IRRI team again. So how does the national government access those rice germplasm collected from their countries, from other countries?
Dr. Venu, are you still online?
Hi, Anna. Yes. Thank you for the question. If I heard properly, the question is, how do the national government access
those rice germplasm collected from their countries? How do how does the national government access?
Hello?
Yeah.
The question was, how do the national governments access the collection, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes. The collection in the IRRI Genebank belongs to the community, right? It does not, we don't own it. We are just and the national governments, or not just the governments, any researchers can avail these germplasm. And we have everything announced on the web, online. We can also guide you if you need some specific kind of material based on our information about the collection. People can request and get them for free of cost. So please make use of this facility.
Okay.
Thank you. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Romea. The next question is to Dr. Tony again. So how do the Philippine corn farmers usually store their harvest?
Well, it depends. There are farmers who have the capability to put up their own storage facilities, and they are the lucky ones. They can manage well their harvest. But there are also those who sell their products coming immediately from the fields. So after harvest, there are buyers waiting for the products to be bought and transferred to bigger warehouses.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tony. That question came from Ma'am Lourdes Mistal. So the next question is for IRRI again. So how does IRRI observe access and benefit sharing mechanism in its collect and access and distribution of rice germplasm?
Yes, IRRI Genebank is fully compliant with the international policies. And for your information, all our collection, we come under the plant treaty, and all our collections are and distributions are all based on SMTAs. So even though the access and benefit sharing is indirectly followed, since it's an SMTA based, we have no issues. We follow all the regulatory policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the next question is to Dr. Tony again, came from Miss Helen Yu. Is there any isolation requirement when producing the hybrid seeds in the field to ensure purity of seeds?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Corn being naturally cross-pollinated, and pollen is carried by the wind to far distances. There has to be some measures to prevent outcrossing, and so that only the proper combination is proper parental combination is produced in hybrid seed production. And this can be done in two ways. One is through temporal isolation or through playing with the timing. So that's only the parents that will be, flowering at the same time will be able, so that the parents will flower at the same time and exclude other parentals. The other strategy is through spatial isolation, meaning distances. Keep the distance away from the other parents, and that's usually like 200 meters distance from the other parentals to avoid the contamination of pollen from the parents that are not intended to be used. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tony. The question goes again to IRRI. We know that the GR rice has already been approved, the golden rice. So, and this puts the Philippines at the global forefront in leveraging agricultural redress to research to address vitamin A deficiency. So, has DA Field Rice or IRRI identified the community in the Philippines having the issue of vitamin A deficiency in order for the community to have this access on golden rice? So, have you identified the community in Philippines? Thank you.
Anna, I think I can answer the question.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so right now we are, of course, through the leadership of DA Phil Rice, we are developing a deployment plan that has identified pilot deployment areas in the Philippines. There will be 7 pilot sites, 7 provinces representing Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And we are just Phil Rice is just conducting the necessary preparations so that we could already start the coordination work. But basically, these provinces have been identified due to the malnutrition status. So that's based on the most recent National Nutrition Survey conducted by the government's nutrition survey, Food and Nutrition Research Institute of the Department of Science and Technology. And also there are other factors that should be considered, like the rice production and other factors. So there are already 7 provinces. Like I said, from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, I'm just not at a liberty to mention the specific sites, but these are the provinces of Quirino, one in Region 5 in the Bicol region, and then 1 in Region 6 and 1 in Region 8, and then 3 in Mindanao. So I don't have the specific sites, pardon, but definitely we are looking at pilot sites, and we will make the necessary announcements as soon as they are available. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Aileen. So I have here again a question from Sir Alexander Magbanwa. Though thorough processing has been done, but we cannot avoid that problems may occur, such as low germinations. This could only be observed after the farmer seeded or planted it in the field or farm. Is producer or owner of the seeds will replace the seeds in the fastest possible time? So, Dr. Tony?
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, well, it's true that seed companies, do all what they can to prevent, or to ensure high quality seeds from the field to the seed processing, packing, delivery to dealers until they reach the farmers. During the, in the supply chain, there are areas where they have limited control. Like when it reaches the dealers, we can only, talk to the dealers, please do this and do that to ensure high germination, but sometimes there are things beyond our control. And when things happen like that, companies, including Corteva, have programs that, that would help farmers recover their investment. Like it can be in the form of replacing the seed, or in the form of some discount or some advice from the people on the ground, from our agronomist and sales team, to make sure that the farmers are guided how to handle when they get to these kinds of situations. So yeah, the seed companies, as part of their product stewardship, help coordinate with farmers to make sure that what they are getting, what they are paying for is what they get in terms of product quality and in terms of product performance.
Thank you, Dr. Tony. Again, I have a question here to IRRI again. How soon IRRI will make available biofortified rice with zinc and iron?
So basically, we're still at the field trial stage, so it will still take some time. Similarly, hopefully much shorter time when we, for approval, hopefully we could submit our dossier at a shorter time. But I cannot give a definite timeline on that. But at this stage, we're conducting confined tests and we'll be doing a field trial in different locations, probably, hopefully next year, while the regulatory studies are ongoing.
Okay, thank you, Sir Norman. Question again to Dr. Tony. What came from Helen Yu? What is the main stewardship considerations when producing GM corn seeds? When you produce GM corn seeds than conventional seeds, so what's the difference between?
I was just typing my message to that, but let me just mention it here. So first, product stewardship is all encompassing. From the time research is being done in the lab until product proof of concept, product development, product commercialization, until pull out from the market. So that's the scope of product stewardship. But when we talk about stewardship specific to GM, so in addition to the usual product quality, purity in terms of genetic purity or physical purity, agronomic performance, or response to our farmers, whatever queries they have, specific considerations for stewardship for GM seeds include IRM, as I presented, insect resistance management, by coming up with the appropriate refuge, what kinds of refuge, what's the proportion, how to deploy it. And we also cover weed resistance management. If the product has herbicide tolerance trait, then we have to implement weed resistance management to make sure that the efficacy of the weed control trait is still there, and some strategies to monitor any possible emergence of weed resistance and how to manage those populations if ever they arise. So those are the two important components of stewardship, product stewardship when it comes to GM seeds in the Philippines, insect resistance management and weed resistance management. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tony. I have here a question to IRRI and Corteva. This is a question for both IRRI and Corteva because different countries have different standards for seed quality. So what are the factors used to classify, for example, in IRRI for rice seeds and for Doctoni for corn seeds? So what are the factors? Because different countries have different standards. Doctoni first?
Yeah, Titelma, I can start. I think the standard, the parameters would be very similar or identical. It's only the numbers, you know. It's a little higher or lower for some countries. And I don't have the details to that, but I agree with you. There could be differences as to the exact parameters in terms of the values, but in terms of what are the parameters, I think those are the same, like I mentioned, genetic purity, physical purity, germination rate, what's this?
But they have different standards.
Yeah, they have different parameters. But as to the specific considerations why, it might have something to do with the weather or the environment in those countries, whether it's tropical or temperate country. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Tony. How about for rice? Who can answer for IRRI? The factors used to classify rice seeds, because different countries have different standards. So how about in Philippines? What do you use here in the Philippines?
Dr. Venu or Monette, would you like to take this question?
Could you repeat the question, please? Sorry, I couldn't hear it very well.
Yeah, because different countries have different standards for seed quality. And so what are the factors used to classify, for example, rice seeds?
So the question was, what are the factors to qualify for rice quality?
Yeah, the rice seeds quality, correct.
Yeah, so quality varies depending on the purpose, right? So for example, if it is a gene bank purpose, then our qualities standards are slightly different. If it is meant for a breeder's seeds, or if it is meant for a commercial purposes, that is distribution to farmers. For example, in our case, when we say quality, for us, quality means having very high viability, at least 85% viability. This is very important. Then quality means absence of any diseases and pests on the seeds. So if we find any such things, we normally discard them. We don't keep them, or we grow them again and make sure that these diseases are cured or removed, or we get the fresh batch of seeds for this. For us, quality also means absence of impurities. Impurities could be anything. It could be wheat seeds, it could be mixtures of other crop, or it could be mixture of other varieties of rice itself. So from a gene bank perspective, these are important. And if you look at even the breeders varieties, or if it is a variety for commercially, given these parameters more or less holds true, but the relative percentage may vary. For example, we say 85% viability, but sometimes when it is for commercial, maybe it's slightly more. It may be few percent higher than what it is. So this is how things vary. But I would, if any seed technology person would be there, he could give a better perspective. That's my take on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ramilla.
Ate Telma?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to your question. Speaking of quality standards, many of these are mandated by the government. So there is a minimum quality standard for commercial seeds. But what's good to note is that the seed companies exceed that, that parameter. The standards are usually higher than what is set by the government. So that's a good news, good info for
because it's good. It's good if we have a harmonized standards for quality rice and corn. So the question goes to Doc Tony again, and also for IRRI. Is there any halal rice and corn seeds developed or provided by your organization? Is there any research conducted in producing halal rice and corn seeds? Doc Tony first.
Yeah, my understanding is that the existing crops are naturally halal. That's my understanding. And if you make them GM or genetically modified, the halal status of the crop will depend on the source of the transgene. The source of the transgene, if the source is halal, then you transfer it to your transgenic crop, the product will still be halal. But if the source is considered non-halal, then the output will be non-halal. That's the general impression that I got. But as to the specific details, I don't have right now.
Okay, how about for IRRI? Is there any halal rice now, or developed or provided by IRRI? Or is there any research conducted?
Basically, similar to Doc Tony's answer. So it really depends on the source. So for us, we really don't have a research on halal rice, but for GM rice, usually our sources of the genes are from plants. So yeah, so anything if from animal, it would change the classification. But basically, we don't have. As far as I'm aware, I'm not aware of any research on that. Right.
Okay, thank you, Sir Norman. There is a question to IRRI again from Sir Alexander Magbanwa. Does IRRI also developing herbicide-ready and insect-resistant rice, just like GM insect-resistant corn or herbicide-resistant corn?
As of now, we are not developing any herbicide tolerant rice. We're also we're more focused on disease resistance, but through conventional breeding. Although we're doing some gene editing work for bacterial liquid, but as of now, there's no development yet if we're going to pursue any work on developing this pest resistant crop, or there might be already some through conventional breeding, but through GM, we're not doing that yet.
Okay, thank you, Sir Norman.